In this section, we're going to be talking about extending Puppet. In this video, we're going to be looking at creating an external fact. Now, if you recall in previous videos, we talked about how when Puppet compiles the catalog, it first runs factor to figure out what the facts are about the system. And facts are just things that can be known about the system, and they can be accessed as variables in your Puppet manifests. So factor will first run through its built-in facts, but when it's done, it will then go look in this facts.d directory for any other or additional fact definitions. And in this directory, or in this set of directories, so on a Linux machine, there's a few directories that it can look in, and on Windows machines, there's at least 2 directories it can look in the program data directory. And the program data directory is usually just c/program data if you're looking for it. And in those directories, there can be files of type text, just txt, files of type YAML, which would have the extension yml or .yaml, or executable scripts. So that is, it doesn't really matter what the extension is, but any script, as long as it's executable. So let's go look at what the text example would look like. So if we had a file called hostname.txt, and we can see that the format would be key equals value. So now, if we wanted to look at this fact, the old way to do this would just say factor hostname, and that would return not right. Now, you might notice that that's actually not the hostname of this machine, right? So we've overwritten the default fact with our external fact, and that's important. We need to look at that later. So let's look at our publisher text. And this is just a fact that I created for publisher, and I've created publication year as well. The newer way to run this is go Puppet facts and then pipe it to something, because Puppet facts will return a properly formatted JSON of all of the facts on the system. So everything will be under this values hash, and then all of our facts will be in here. And if we search for our publication year, we'll see that our publication year is 2020 and our publisher is packed. So that's been set by our publication.txt file. The other type of file we could use is YAML, and I've created a YAML file. So the publisher.yaml file starts with 3 dashes and a new line. And if you don't use 3 dashes, then factor will actually ignore the file and not compute the facts. That's an important thing to remember. Now, Puppet will actually tell you that it's ignoring the file if you specify the --debug option. So what have we done in this file? This file has created a fact called publication, but then under publication are 4 other values. So these are accessible individually. If we just run Puppet facts and pipe less, and then look for publication once this is finished. So publication, we'll see there's publication, and there's those 4 subvalues. Now, if we wanted to look at the subvalue definition, or if we wanted to see the value of that, let's look at an example I created. We'll see that you can access these variables using this array notation. So this would be the publication location. So we expect that to say Seattle here. So there should be one notify that says Seattle. Then for this one, I'm going to use this fact, and this is a function that's provided by standardlib, and that allows us to use the dot notation, so we can say publication dot location. So that again is Seattle. So I expect this to say location Seattle. So if we say Puppet apply and then give the name of that file, we'll see that Puppet will run facts first, get the values, and then substitute them in. So I've got one notify of just Seattle, that's the first one up here, but then I've got another one that says location : Seattle, and that's the second one. So you can refer to them in either way. This one is perhaps a little bit easier when you have a extended depth, like if you had publication dot location dot something else, it would be much easier to use the dot notation, and that's the reason for that. Now, the last type is actually quite useful, is an executable file. And the executable file, as long as it returns a properly formatted text file or YAML file, those facts can be used as facts. And that's particularly useful when you want to compute the value from something that you're getting from somewhere else. So let's look at this one that I created, google.sh, which is an executable script. This executable script will create a properly formatted YAML file, and we can verify that just by running this script. And we'll see that it returns this YAML that says this is the value for those machines. So if I say Puppet facts, and then we look for Google, we'll see that those values are getting substituted in there for Google. So Puppet is executing that script and then returning its value inside our facts like that. So you get the idea. This is a very simple example, but let's say you needed to look up something in LDAP. You could use an executable script to look up something in LDAP and then return it as a fact value you could then use as a variable in your manifests. And that sometimes reduces the complexity of your code. If you can take that little bit out and put it into a fact and have it executed once at the beginning, sometimes that's a lot more efficient. The only thing to worry about is that you can overwrite the built-in facts. So if we say factor fqdn on this machine, we'll see that it says not write.no such domain. Yet, if I say hostname-f, which is the other way of asking for the fqdn, they don't match. And the reason for that is because in our hostname.txt, we overwrote the value of fqdn. So if we were relying on fqdn to be the fqdn of this machine in our catalog, we would be all screwed up and messed up. So you got to remember when you're defining these facts not to reuse the names of the built-in facts, unless you know what you're doing and you actually wanted to do that. But a lot of times it's best just to avoid those altogether.